You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Center, this is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share facts.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication.
It's over 9,000! My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll! Don't save me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a firing believer! Time to do. Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Phoenix 32.5 FM. This is Nerd to Know Basis. You are listening to, of course, the one, the only hub for your nerd content. This week, I'm joined by my co-host, the one, the only, Kino Calican. How are you doing?
Hello, I am phoning in from abroad. I'm on holiday at the moment, but I'm thrilled to be here. I'd never miss a show if I can help it.
You're a man on the ground.
I'm the Kent Brockman of this operation.
I mean, this is funny. This is like a couple of years ago when I was over in England for when we did the Star Wars bingo.
Oh yeah,
we were like spot on. I have to say, we were like 100% ahead of the curve there. So
I'm looking forward to a new Star Wars thing coming out so we can do bingo about it again.
What was it? Daisy Wrigley went back up on Instagram recently.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, does this mean they're gonna like undo the trilogy?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I know we're gonna. This is, by the way, this is our vampire themed episode.
It is our
but
it's vampires in Star Wars.
Actually, I feel really bad for Daisy Ridley because like she only just turned 30. She's younger than me, and the entire internet has like bullied her for existing for like the past 6 years. And I'm glad that she's kind of, this doesn't seem to have slowed down her career or anything like that, because I wouldn't like all the sort of Star Warsy stuff to be laid at the feet of one person, especially if it's an actor,
There's only one person that it should be laid at the feet of, and that's J.J. Abrams, and that's it. They obviously don't bully J.J. Abrams, but don't support him. Like he ruins franchises. The man just goes from franchise to franchise and either makes A New Hope or else hire somebody to do a better job. Like, I really like his production house, Bad Robot.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Cloverfield series.
Oh, and the new Mission Impossible movies, they're unreal. They're like some of my favorite movies. But man, he cannot do Star Trek, and the first Star Trek wasn't bad, but then it kind of went to hell, and he cannot do Star Wars. So I mean, obviously it's our vampire team episode, so we are going to get to that. I'm going to control myself. But yeah, so it's good to have you on, man. It's we decided, considering the fact that it was the two of us and there isn't really like loads of news, we're gonna kind of actually have a semi show plan this week.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have a show concept. So I wouldn't go so far as to call it a plan. We're gonna have a meander through a theme, because I have been very excited to hear your thoughts even on Morbius, the new Marvel kinda movie by Sony.
It is a Marvel movie. It's just a horrendous 2005 Marvel movie from the
There
depths.
are like 5 asterisks over the Marvel logo in regards to Morbius.
They're really trying to force it in, going, hey, look, we're Marvel too, you guys. Come on, we're Marvel.
Like, people
too.
are debating whether Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon, and that's more Marvel than, Venom and Morbius.
Well, see, Venom I didn't mind too much because it had soul and it kind of felt like it could fit in there. But this one, I mean, you've seen it, right?
No, I have been deliberately not seeing it because I've been really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it. I saw Sonic 2 instead, and we covered it last week.
Oh, Sonic 2 is wonderful. What a great time that movie is. So happy. They even went shadow at the end. Oh, man, stop. Brilliant.
Oh, I know. It was I think I said this on my last episode, but I'll recap quickly. It was my daughter's first cinema experience, and she said her favorite part of the movie was when Eggman got a friend.
No.
Isn't that so sweet? And never mind all the kind of like, cynicism of Sonic. I like that a movie can give that to a young kid.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, like I went to go see it a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, I thought it was great. Honestly, I thought it was really good. Funny, the same day, because I was actually on a date, and after that was over, there was a gig on in Fibbers, but it was like something like 5 hours in between the distance, and I'm like, but there's nothing else to do. I might as well go see Morbius. So
you know what? That is the most honest review of Morbius that I've ever heard. I might as well go see it.
I had 5 hours, and it was either sit in a Starbucks or go to the cinema again. And I was like, all right, I might as well go see Morbius. And it was I mean, that wasn't planned. That wasn't a bit I actually didn't need to cut. I mean, I really liked it up to a point.
Right.
And then I immediately started hating it to the point where I'm like, this is no, it's so weird, man, right? Because I'm having a good time. This is fine. It's fine. It never went above this is fine till it just hit like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It was that like catastrophic near the end. And I'm like, why does this movie exist? Who, like, why? I don't understand. Like, okay, right. So I want to.
For the normies in the audience like me, what is this movie actually about? Because I'm only vaguely aware of Morbius from the comics, and even then, it's more of like a visual, like he looks cool type thing. What's the deal with this film?
So Morbius is funny because he wasn't really a big part of my fandom of Spider-Man, period, with the exception, even in the comics, his comics aren't very good. He just looks cool, as you said correctly, because that's his whole thing. He looks really cool, but he's actually not very interesting. Spider-Man the animated series is the only one that actually did Morbius any kind of favors. So
I remember the Spider-Man 3 game, the Tobey Maguire one, doing Morbius quite well there too.
Oh really?
Yeah, surprisingly. Oh, the plot of, I'm actually a defender of Spider-Man 3, but the Spider-Man 3 game's plot is actually pretty good, and Morbius and Lizard are both a part of it.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if you remember the animated series, but Morbius and Blade were actually in that show. Actually, pretty much everybody was in Spider-Man the animated series, which was like the coolest thing ever as a kid. I think the reason why I like Marvel nowadays is because of that show. And I still think it's really good. Actually,
it wouldn't surprise me because that was the first kind of shared universe thing across different cartoons, wasn't it? Because X-Men, Iron Man, and stuff were out, weren't there?
X-Men, Iron Man, they had an Avengers, the Hulk. But I always really liked the Spider-Man. And
well, Spider-Man is like your home base for Marvel, as in a universe where the rights aren't divided across different studios as is the MCU way. But I can see why your character turns up in Spider-Man, that people like them, maybe they get a spin-off show, that kind of thing,
And that's kind of what happened. And a couple of years ago, actually, I didn't even, because again, before the internet, you just watch, and again, the way we got it over here in Ireland was like, whatever was on RTE, that's kind of what you watched. So, we got the X-Men, we got Spider-Man, but we got the Hulk. I remember seeing a couple episodes of the Hulk, but I didn't see the full show, obviously, and apparently it is known as the best one from a story standpoint. But in Islands of Adventure in America, the show, when that actually came back into like that whole animated thing came into relevance, that's what they actually used. All that island in Islands of Adventure is all based on that universe. So for me, I was like, oh man, this is like the greatest thing ever, and it was. Anyway. So going all the way back, walking tangent back, Morbius was a big part of that show, and his whole thing was plasma and all that kind of stuff. He was very, very Dracula-esque, going, "Oh, I'm a vampire,"
If I vaguely recall correctly, isn't his thing similar to Blizzard, where he's a vampire but he hates being a vampire and kind of wants to resist it, that kind of thing? Or am I completely on the wrong tracks?
You're not wrong, but you're not 100% right. So in the show, he's a doctor. It's pretty much like the movie. So his overall arc is he has this disease and it's going to kill him, right? It's like in the movie, it's a blood disease. It's usually a blood thing, right? And then he becomes a doctor, a hematologist, world-renowned PhD, Nobel scientist, winner, all that kind of stuff. And he heals himself, but by healing himself, he also turns himself into a vampire. So, I mean, he's not dead, but he has to feed on blood.
So he's not like a vampire in the normal Blade, the vampire hunter type sense.
Yeah, I mean,
he
can go out in the day and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like he is a vampire basically. He needs to feed on blood. In the animated series, it was plasma because they couldn't mention blood because kids.
Right.
But same kind of thing. In the movie, it's interesting. So in order to get it, the movie was supposed to be we will actually do an animated series review at one point because I just want to watch all of those and I want.
I'm gonna have to go see them all first. I missed them growing up.
Yeah, no, don't worry. We'll hook those up. There's a bay occupied by pirates, where theoretically for educational purposes you can sail.
There's also a bay known as Disney Plus.
Oh, this is true. I forgot about that. They're all on Disney Plus. Yeah, do that instead. Forget what I said.
I mean, if you're enthusiastic, by all means. But
I mean, I totally forgot they're on Disney Plus. There you go. This is better, ladies and gentlemen. This is how you defeat piracy. Provide it easier than doing the thing, and it's fine. So that means I can just watch it on Disney Plus. Brilliant. That's even better again. Obviously, the show does not condone anything like that, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no Disney Plus for a very long time, and these shows were very hard to find. So it is what it is.
I'm interested to see how you're just doggedly avoiding talking about this Morbius film.
I'm not. I'm just trying to talk about stuff that's better. Everything I mentioned is better than it. Okay, right. Okay, so go. You have no idea how boring this movie is, man. Nothing happens. Okay, right. So I'll try. I'll go back to being a professional. All right. So the movie itself, right?
It's happening again.
Yeah, I know. I just really want to talk about the animated series now. Right. So the movie basically it follows Michael Morbius, and he again cures himself. It starts off where he's in an orphanage. He's an orphan for some reason, which is a weird thing. He has a friend orphan, whose name I can't remember his name. I think it's Oswald or whatever. I was going to call him friend orphan.
All the reviews I've read have just called him friend orphan.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. It's something like Oswald or something like that. But friend orphan is the name I'm going to use. Yeah. So him and friend orphan are in the orphanage, and there's literally like a line of dialogue where it's like, oh, we're the one of a kind. We're the Spartans, and it's like the few against the many. And in my head, as a classicist, I'm like, bro, you guys would be left on exposure and killed as babies. Probably shouldn't look up to the Spartans. Not a good society to look up to. Just saying. And the weird part of it is they use that as their big bonding point. Like that comes up over and over again. Sorry,
I'm just going to pause you there. The best friend's name is Milo.
I'm going to go with friend orphan.
Friend orphan seems a bit more catchier. Yeah.
Yeah. I never would have went back to Milo, honestly. Anyway, so this kind of bonds them together, and then there's a huge jump, like a 20-year jump. Where Michael Morbius is obviously he's getting his PhD for inventing fake blood, and friend orphan is a millionaire for some reason, and that's kind of where you're dropped into it. And then Morbius discovers a cure because he only has a couple of days left to live, and he's like, oh, we really need to get this cure. They go out into the middle of the ocean, out past international waters, and friend orphan is like, I'll fund it, don't worry, just get the cure. Gets the cure, cures his blood disease, but ends up killing all these mercs, and literally pulls their throat out and feeds blood, and it's all violent. But here's the thing, it's not violent because all the violence happens off screen and you hear it all, except for one point when he violently rips someone's throat out, but there's no blood, so it's not violent. So I mean, I think what was supposed to happen was they were supposed to CGI in the blood, and they just didn't. So it's just kind of weird.
So plasma just pops out instead.
No, nothing. No, he just falls on the ground, and you just hear the gurgling of blood, and you're like, "What happened?" Which means this movie. Well, no, I know what happened. This movie was supposed to be rated R or 18s, but now it's PG. So think they just hit delete on all those keys and
It's less work for them. It's less audiences, but it's also less work.
I mean, yeah, but it's just very off-putting because you're like, he's doing all this violence and there's like the core premise is he's sucking their blood or he's having their blood and there's no blood in the movie.
Yeah. Like there are ways to do a 12s vampire movie, but if you're doing a gory vampire movie, you can't do it as a 12s movie. Like,
I mean, the way to do a vampire movie rated 12s is to not.
that would have been ideal. I mean, they did try. This was postponed like 7 times, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a movie that's been coming out for years, and it's just terrible. Like,
I mean, movies have been made since this started getting pushed back that have come out. Like,
Yeah, look, I just don't know what they were trying to do. Like, there are like again. Okay, so to continue the plot, so basically, friend orphan then takes the cure, and goes kind of mad.
This is the Matt Smith character, by the way.
This is the Matt Smith character,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kills a heap of people, and then they fight, and that's it.
Wow, that's a strong opening to a film, but is that it?
No, that's the movie.
Oh, okay.
It's the entire movie.
Well, what happens in it though? Does he fight crime? Does he like
no?
go around, like,
he fights friend orphan.
Yeah, okay, but like,
and friend orphan goes around and kills those people.
I'm trying to structure this. I'm assuming he becomes the vampire like 40 minutes in or something. Yeah.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah.
Then what happens between him and fighting friend orphan?
He learns how to use his powers.
Right. Okay.
I mean, here's the thing, right? So he's not Spider-Man, right? But they give him the same training montage as Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man's powers aren't a curse, right? And the emotional baggage of this sorry, that's it. Yeah, that is he sees it as a curse, he doesn't want to kill and blah blah blah. But then at the same time, he's like, "Oh, I'm so strong. Look at all the stuff I can do." And you're like, "Wait, which is it?"
Are you having fun or not?
Yeah,
like, are you Batman or are you Spider-Man?
Yeah, you can't do both. And this movie really, really leans into the positive side of it when there isn't any. Matt Smith, now I have to say, is a gem in this. It's great to see him in a movie that wasn't cut or for 2 minutes, but he's just Doctor Who. He's just the ninth Doctor. That's all he is. Was I right? No, 10, 11. Sorry. He's just the 11th Doctor. Sorry, you should have corrected me there, Kane. I was like waiting for the correction. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's just one of those movies where you're sitting there going, right, what's the point here? Matt Smith he's doing everything that you'd expect. He's being as Matt Smith as he can possibly be. Without, well, no, actually, I think the line is crossed, to be fair. I mean, if you're a Doctor Who fan, you really appreciate the Matt Smithness. Again, Matt Smith is my Doctor, so I think he's great in that role, but there's nothing to differentiate him between, to stand out in this. I mean, like, if I wasn't a Doctor Who fan, I wouldn't say I'm a fan. If I wasn't a Doctor Who or familiar with Doctor Who, I wouldn't have been at all familiar with it. I wouldn't have even tried to enjoy this. But
well, yes, I suppose, because that's, sorry, my daughter was in the room there.
No, it's fine.
The microphone.
It's
that's been the thing. I do miss, like you, I agree. It's nice to have a finished film with Matt Smith in it come out that isn't Last Night in Soho. I was wondering, is Matt Smith being good in this worth the 9% on IMDb slog? I suppose is what it would come down to.
No, I mean, it's not. Here's the thing, right? If this had come out in 2005, and it really does feel like that.
I'm getting Ghost Rider vibes off it. Yeah.
No, Ghost Rider's wonderful though. Ghost Rider's mad as all.
It's a very specific type of movie, though.
Yeah. No. Well, Nick Cage, you're always gonna. Once Nick Cage has a freak out, you're gonna have a good time.
Oh look, I have 2 copies of it on DVD. I'm not shaming Ghost Rider. I am shaming me. But I'm not shaming Ghost Rider.
No, I mean,
I'm just saying it's like you say, a mid-2000s, very standard Spider-Man-y, first half learning to use the powers, second half angst.
I actually have. I'm actually looking
and
up.
fight. You know,
I'm looking at my. I'm looking up at my DVDs now, and I actually have Ghost Rider front and center. That's really embarrassing.
yes.
No, I mean it's not as. It's not. Yeah, it's look. It's not as good or as bad as any of them because it's unfair to say that. It's a slight against them. It's not as bad as Catwoman. It's not as good as Ghost Rider or Daredevil. It's just kind of there, and it doesn't need to be. It's like all the movies that came out before the Dark Knight changed everything.
Right,
You know,
right.
like the Dark Knight actually, or Dark Knight and Iron Man, they came out in the same year and changed everything. Right? It's not those.
Yeah.
It's a actually full step back. It's like a throwback movie.
Okay, because like I mean, I'm sorry to cut across you, but like I'm
No,
looking
go on.
at the reviews there. 16% on Rotten Tomatoes, 1% or to 1 star The Observer. Like, you know, these are colossally bad reviews, and I kind of have to wonder what could be so wrong with this. You know,
Well,
it
what's
doesn't
wrong?
sound like there's. It sounds boring, but not like
No, what's
the
wrong with
worst
it?
thing ever.
What's
You know.
wrong with it is it's a 15-year step back.
Okay, it's as simple as that, is it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's nothing to hold. Like the movie isn't bad. The writing, it's just really, 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 really boring.
Right.
And I mean, for the first half, of it, I was like, okay, this is actually fine. Like the best, it's fine, and then it just careens to the floor because there's nothing to hold on to. You're like, there's nothing here. Like this movie is completely pointless. It's not necessary. You could actually scale this whole movie back into a Disney Plus special. You could pair us back into an online trailer. And but here's where it really kind of here's the proper like cheap criticisms of Sony. And this is at Sony. I'm sorry, they do this, and it's really annoying that they do this. They lie in trailers. They outright lie in trailers. So, and I mean, look, Marvel do it too, but they do it for a fun reason. They kind of like, oh, we got you. No, Sony just lie.
Yeah, I've noticed it's in the difference because like the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer gives away like the entire plot. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, but
or like, you know, it's kind of Venom will give away the big surprises in the movie. Like, so
this is so much worse.
what is it about
This is so much
I better
worse.
call it the Jared Leto film. What is it about Morbius's trailer that lies?
Well, he walks past Spider-Man, the graffiti that never happens.
Right.
They don't acknowledge Spider-Man in the runtime of the movie at all. The Daily Bugle obviously is referenced and Venom is referenced.
Was that in reference? I'm surprised at that.
Yeah, but the bigger lie is Michael Keaton in the movie. Michael Keaton isn't in the runtime of the movie either.
Oh,
He doesn't play. He doesn't play a big part in the movie at all. He is in two Spider-Man and Michael Keaton. Spider-Man reference, shall I say, is in the two post-credit sequences.
Right.
So the post-credit sequence is he's blipped. No, he's not blipped. He So obviously, because he knows Peter Parker's, it's very convoluted how to do it. Because he knows who Peter Parker is.
By the way, is this a big spoiler thing?
This is a huge spoiler, by the way.
I mean, I hate to ruin Morbius for someone,
Yeah,
but just might as well be polite.
No, hold on. I hate to ruin the post-credit sequence to Morbius for everybody.
Yeah. If you're going to see Sonic 2, just maybe stick your head into the last 10 minutes.
10
of
minutes
Morbius, you know.
So,
not that we endorse that, but I mean, if you're gonna, you might as well get the best experience, you know.
For education purposes, obviously.
Yes, of course.
Theoretically.
Is it piracy if you've paid to be in the cinema? Anyway, that's a bigger discussion. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. What are the two things?
So basically, so at the end of No Way Home, Doctor Strange does the spell basically to make everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man or who Peter Parker is, right? Somehow that sends Michael Keaton to the Venomverse. They don't explain it. There's no real reason. And he ends up in jail. So he's technically in the same jail he's in the MCU. But obviously that jail is not the same jail because it's not the same universe. And I'm not joking. They're like, man has been found in jail. They cut the hard cut to a news report where it's like, man has been found in jail, claimed from a different universe. He has been immediately released. And you're like, what?
I
Okay.
hold on to him first.
No, it gets better.
Okay.
And then immediately he suits up wearing the same vulture gear
Right.
to meet Morbius. Now, here's the question I have. That gear was made with tech from the Jordani army in the attack of New York and the Avengers, which obviously didn't happen in this universe. Where does he get the suit?
Yeah, I'm assuming they didn't let him keep it in a cell.
No, I mean, it's a different universe. You can't bring it with you.
Yeah, it's so okay.
I know.
So
Crazy. Doesn't make any sense.
okay, because even if you do that, Spider-Man is still in the MCU. People have forgotten about him, but he's still there.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
Why not?
And the thing of it is, it's obviously to set up a Sinister Six movie, but like Adrian Toomes isn't a bad dude, right? Morbius,
No, not. He's roguish, I suppose.
yeah,
But
he's not like on the straight and narrow, but he's not a bad guy, right?
no, I mean he does kill like a few people in the Marvel movie, but he's not like he's not like I'm trying to think Green Goblin.
Yeah,
without
not,
the goodness, he's just kind of running a dodgy family business,
Yeah, like I mean, he's not the Kingpin. He's not, he's not Loki, who's now a good guy for some reason. I mean, like it's just as you said, he's just running a dodgy operation. But like Morbius, yeah, he kills a rake of people, but they make it very, very clear that they're bad people and no one will miss them. Literally a line from the movie. And they're like, no, literally, they say that. They're like, oh, we don't care about. They literally say
that's like the Batman versus Superman. They landed on an uninhabited island where they are fighting.
No, they literally say, right? Don't worry, we don't care about the mercenaries. Nobody.
You know
what?
Check
who wrote this.
Check back in a few years, but if I'm ever caught like holding a bloody knife, I'd love to just say, "Don't worry, no one will miss them," and see if I can get away with it.
They were bad people. Don't worry. Oh my god. So I mean, in this universe, you can get away with murder. Apparently,
this is the Sony verse. Maybe it's allowed.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know. But anyway, so you're walking out going, I feel cheated. Well, I have the Cineworld card, so I mean, once I go to cinema once a week, it pays for itself. And I'm just like, okay, I feel cheated of my time. I feel confused by what I watched because I don't know how he has that technology still. It's a whole mess, man. It's just like, why did you do this?
Do you think though, because the elephant in the room is this has been pushed back so many times that at some point this film was probably meant to hype up No Way Home?
Definitely that last scene was a reshoot because it isn't even Michael Keaton. He's not even wearing that. He's wearing the helmet the whole time.
Oh, I see.
So
do you think at some point maybe the actual intent of the scene was for Morbius to get shifted into the Marvel universe, and now that they've just missed the boat and they have to do it the other way around or something like that?
Maybe. I mean, the only Spider-Man that they could really do here, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't want it. I think it's kind of a cheat, is if they have Andrew Garfield there, and I don't want Andrew Garfield's third movie to be ruined by this train wreck of a cinematic universe. Like, look, nobody wants this. I don't know one person that goes, "Oh, I love Morbius." I mean, if you're that person, please let me know because I don't think you exist.
Yeah.
Look, as I said, it was fine. It was non-offensive. I had 5 hours to kill. It was that or sit in Starbucks for 5 hours, and I didn't have my computer.
So if your time had value, you might be more annoyed by this film.
I mean, if I had something to do, if I had to have my computer, I could have played Vampire the Masquerade, which we'll talk about. I could have done anything else, but because it was kind of raining outside and I had nowhere else to be, it was fine.
You are the perfect demographic for this film.
I mean, not when I had something to do. I wouldn't be. I'd be very annoyed if I had to pay money for it. But because it was on my Cineworld card, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll go see it again. Sure, probably will actually. But, I mean, the cinema is a good place just to hang out sometimes, right? Whatever.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, I suppose we can segue from that into, because I know you're a big fan of the Blade films.
I like vampires
and all that kind of stuff. So since we've got a vampire movie that has completely bombed despite having the Marvel brand behind it. I suppose I'd love to get your insights on like not just Marvel vampires like Blade and that kind of stuff, but also kind of vampires that have undergone a weird like kind of evolution in cinema in the past 20 years. And I suppose like what do you think is the appeal of vampires like cinematically in general? Like
oh, sorry, there we go. I just love vampires.
Mm.
I think they're great. I think they're like a really, really cool storytelling dynamic. And look, here's the thing: we've always had vampires. You know, there's vampires in ancient Rome, obviously the Middle Ages. You know, they're called different things, obviously, but they do exist, and they're like the same story because we tell the same stories over and over again. You know, we just do. We're humans. We only live for about 80, 90 years max, and then after a couple of generations, we totally forget and go back. It's something that I was kind of enamored with a little while ago. Was that issue of ancient vampires? So I mean, obviously it comes from somewhere, right? It's a cool idea. It's just like,
well, it comes from here. Bram Stoker's Irish.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know that, but I mean that the modern telling of vampires.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You can read texts from ancient Rome when you talk about vampires.
Okay,
right. That's 2,000 years ago in Italy. But I mean, like, yeah, obviously the most famous vampire was written by Bram Stoker in Ireland. After a bad curry and stout, I believe. No, legit. I think he had like a bad curry and a bad point, and he woke up and wrote it. But obviously, that's based.
Did he wake up in a coffin?
I don't know. I mean, you can go and ask the Bram Stoker Festival. I think it's on soon. I just might actually.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Bram Stoker Festival. Those folks work hard. It's always a good time. Actually, we'll try to get them on this year. That'll be fun.
Yeah,
we'll do that. Show planning on the show, folks. That's how you do it. So yeah, look, but I mean, in cinema, in gaming, for a while, I actually tried to like find some good vampire games, and they're very hard to find. They are not easy to find. I even played a terrible one where you're like a neon vampire, and it's real bad for the Xbox 360. I cannot remember the name of it now, but it's atrocious. And the best vampire experience that I've ever Blood Rain's quite good. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But the best vampire game that you can ever play, and we will get to Blade in a second, but the best vampire game you could ever play, one of the best games you can ever play, period, is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It is amazing. It is an RPG based on the tabletop game. So I know Kev and Bryn are freaking out somewhere. And, you know, I think it's great. I have the book, but the game itself is brilliant. It was developed on the Source engine, which is Half-Life 2. It's still there. You can get it on GOG. It's actually on sale now at the moment for like $5. Buy it for everyone, you know. Whenever I fix computers, I like install 2 games on it. Deus Ex and
yes, you did mention this a few weeks ago. Yeah,
all the time, because I'm like, you need to play those games. They're great. And the thing about Vampire Masquerade is you can play as different vampires, you know, different types. You can play as like the aristocrat. You can play as Gangrel, which is kind of more bestial. You can play as like a Nosferatu, like the Nosferatu movie, but basically that's a stealth build because, you know, you're so hideous. So you have to like learn hacking and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, they're the builds, but then you can, you know, put stats into whatever. So it is like a proper RPG. And the fans actually fixed it, because when it was released, it was a horrible mess. So never buy it on Steam because they haven't fixed it. GOG comes with the patch. So, I mean, if you're willing to patch a game, buy it on Steam. But if you want it straight out where you can play it, just GOG. And it's one of the best games you can ever play, period. But from a vampire experience, you can experience everything. You can experience the hunger, you can experience hunting, you can experience the more adult themes, shall we say, of the vampire lore. Because there's obviously a lot of very, I know we're conscious at the time we're on it, but there's very erotic overtones to vampire.
Well, I mean, you kind of mentioned vampires. It's now kind of people kind of assume, you know,
but it always has been. That's the thing, or at least since Bram Stoker. I mean, there is that kind of element to it, and then you can even go further, tying it back to Blade, to like the industrial metal subculture that was in Blade, you know, with the raves as well. That's a thing you can do in Vampire the Masquerade. I mean, anything you want to do, you can do in that game. It's unbelievable. And I would say everyone listening to this now, if you haven't played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, do. You will have a great time.
Yeah, cancel your ticket to Morbius. Just go play this first.
No, don't no go seriously. Like you have nothing to do this weekend. Which I'd be shocked if you did, because like you're listening to this show. Come on, we're awesome. But also there's like Siege of Limerick and stuff on this year, so people are probably busy. But I mean, I would recommend, if any game that's out at the moment now, bin it. Just play Vampire the Masquerade. You'll have the best time. It's or even just watch someone play or watch videos on it, and it's one of the best games ever. But specifically, if you're a fan of vampires or that whole thing, you will really appreciate it. The lore is so deep. The character builds are great. The combat is terrible, legitimately. Like ranged combat is awful. But you're a vampire. You don't need to use a gun, right? I mean, that defeats the purpose of being a vampire. But it's super fun, and you have a great time. Again, it's dirt cheap, totally worth it, and that's kind of where I want to hit first, because that came out around 2004, 2005. And it was just after vampires had that resurgence in media, right? Where we went away from, before vampires got cool, it was kind of just Nosferatu, right? And, Salem's Lot or whatever. Then it kind of progressed into the dingy underground industrial vampires, right? Which reached its zenith in Blade. That's how Blade opens. Blade 2.
Yeah, well, actually, right? I'm glad you brought that up, because, like, certainly I've kind of grown up with the resurgence of vampires. Like, Interview with a Vampire was kind of mid-90s.
Yeah.
Then Blade is late 90s. For Irish listeners, the Darren Shan vampire series, that started around the same time as Harry Potter. That was great. That ran for 10 years. Like, it felt like, I mean, vampire, as you kind of hit on there, is kind of a perfect teenage thing anyway, because it's like you say, like it's about transformation. There's kind of a grown up, for lack of more 5 o'clock word, quality to it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Like
grown up,
it's cool, and it's got all that kind of stuff, and that's why it translates. Like I can see why people like Twilight as teenagers, like because it's got all those elements. Like, it's weird that vampires can work in Blade, like for one way, or like in Twilight for another, and still not have to change anything about it, really.
Well,
like,
they do kind of. I mean, like that's another thing as well that isn't captured in Vampire the Masquerade, right? You don't have to kill anybody. You can just hang out and talk to people, and do a Twilight playthrough, basically, if you really want to. Or you could be a bloodthirsty killer. But you will be but you'll be hunted by a vampire slayer.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, Buffy the same. Buffy, Angel.
Buffy, yes, thank you. I forgot about
Buffy,
that.
Angel.
So
these are all kind of things that play in the modern. And I go on record and say I think vampire, the vampire, is probably the best mythological villain / creature ever, because it's so versatile. You can do anything you want with vampires. I mean,
that's a good point, actually, because like you think Frankenstein has been around in fiction longer than vampires. Like, obviously you made a point for it being an ancient Roman stuff, but like Frankenstein stories, unless you're like kind of doing a genre thing, like making the Cybermen into Frankenstein or something like that, generally Frankenstein stories are kind of a 1-to-1. Whereas vampires, you can use them in loads of different ways,
Well, I mean, because it's very different. I mean, like, the Frankenstein is never really the focus. It's never the interesting part of a Frankenstein. Sorry. Let me correct myself. Frankenstein's monster is never the interesting part of that story. It's always Dr. Frankenstein, the guy who actually made it. Why did he make it? Why did he sin against God to rebuild this thing, And that's the interesting part. That's the interest. If you read the book, I don't know if you ever read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
No, I've read Dracula, but I haven't read the Mary Shelley yet.
Shelley's pretty good. She's also Irish, which is wild. I don't know. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, well, she's either Irish of Irish extraction.
I'm gonna look that up.
Apparently, it was written during the year that they had no summer. The 4 years that he had no summer, so it's just darkness all the time.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
I mean, yeah. So it's either Anyway. So Mary Shelley, the book is quite good, but I mean, what makes that interesting is the case study of what compels someone to do this, and that is kind of in Morbius as well, but they don't lean into it. I think
because like Morbius, you're right. You've got the Frankenstein scientists shouldn't meddle where they don't belong thing, and you have a vampire, and it's Sony, and it's aimed at pre-teens. This should be like a slam dunk, considering everything we've talked about, you know?
I mean, absolutely should have been. It's just, there was nothing to hold on to. I mean, like, with Morbius, I mean, they made up Friend Orphan, you know, for this. He didn't exist before. And, you know, I mean, like, they made him up. He wasn't there. So they could have made this fit. But, I mean, I think they specifically wanted the hero's journey in a movie that isn't earned. You know, if they were going to do this, what they should have done, really, they should have said, look, can we just do a Blade movie and have Morbius appear in Blade? Much cooler, much easier sell. I mean, they can team up, they can do stuff, you know. But no, Sony wants to have this overarching universe that nobody's going to watch because.
Well, they want to, because they can't have Spider-Man in the truest sense. They want a sort of alternative Avengers as well as a Sinister, because you've got Venom and they turn Venom into a hero, you know.
I mean,
so we'll get a Black Cat movie next, probably Silver Sable, anyone from Spider-Man's best friends gallery, you know, we'll probably get a franchise.
All these movies are things that I watch when I have 5 hours free and I'm in the cinema. That's all those movies are. Like, they're not good. I wouldn't give up time to, you know, do anything else to see any of those movies. I mean, look, again, I know we'll go back to Vampire thing and all, but if they wanted to do it, just make alternative Spider-Man movies. I mean, make Spider-Man 2099. Make Armored Spider-Man. You know, literally, if you're going to do that, you own Spider-Man. Use all the Spider-Man. You know, it's like, what? I don't understand going halfway.
We probably will get that now, in fairness.
I mean, look,
now that No Way Home is like blowing the lid on that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what they should have done from the get-go. I mean, like, I don't know how they didn't think, you know what, we can just milk the Spider-Man thing if we just use a turn of Spider-Man. And they just didn't think that. Instead, they're like, no, we'll make Morbius. But no, we're going to make Morbius. It's like, okay. All right. It's such a weird... I don't know how these people in Hollywood think, but it's so weird that, like, it's still locked 15 years ago for Sony, you know? Where they're like...
It's yeah, well, I suppose... Because DC tried the Marvel... I know we want to talk about vampires, but DC tried the Marvel thing and it blew up in their face, and they were better off just kind of doing their own thing, and they've become a lot more successful with the DC properties since they abandoned more or less that model. I mean, so like Sony are kind of halfway doing both, where they're just like throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, and just doing enough to have a shared universe if they want, but also they can backtrack if it doesn't work out. It's very much just like kind of, is this what you want? Shrug kind of thing. Even Venom was deeply flawed. It just so happened that lots of people liked it. You know,
I loved the first Venom. I thought it was brilliant.
Oh, I love it too, but it's very flawed.
Oh, absolutely. It's a movie that
the flaws make it fun.
Yeah. Like, okay, look, and we will go back to the vampire thing in a minute.
Even Venom is kind of a vampire story if you think about it.
Very much so, yeah. But listen, you know, Morbius, again, the best thing they could have done is I would have just held this off again. And, you know, I would have. And then I would have said, listen, Andrew, here's like $1 million. Go up there and do the Spider-Man thing for a little bit, right? And then just have it begin where he's blipped back, right? And he's the main character. He's not even Spider-Man. He can just walk around, right? And just tell the story from his point of view. Because then you have a main character. And then you can cut back and forward where he's like, oh, wow, this is weird. There's this lad here and this lad here. And I mean, because then at least you're like, there's some connection to something. This movie just begins and it just ends. And there's no connection to anything. And you're like, okay, Friend Orphan's dead. No, Friend Orphan may be dead. We don't know if he's dead or not because they didn't confirm it.
Oh my god, I'm so excited to see this now. I know that's not the intention you're getting across.
Don't be. You will not like it. Well, no, you might like it because again, the Matt Smith stuff is like everyone enjoys seeing Matt Smith, but I'm just like, just go back to me, Doctor Who, man. Come on, look, no one's going.
Yeah, 60th anniversary is next year.
You know,
you never know.
Just be Doctor Who, like, you know. I mean, why not? Just pretend like the other ones didn't happen and it's fine.
No, that's an argument for another day.
It is.
Uh,
Anyway,
but okay, because actually, since we're kind of back to talking about Morbius, like kind of, it's funny to think that Blade is like the comic book movie that started all this, like and that was that made vampires cool, or at least was one of the big movements in it. And now Morbius is the one that has definitively killed that model of superhero movie making. Like, what worked about Blade in the first place? It, like, as a series, because I know we talked about Blade 1 specifically a few weeks ago. What worked about those three films?
I mean, I saw Blade just like Saturday before Halloween, like the Halloween Saturday, in Cineworld. They had like a special 15mm screening, and it was amazing. It really was. That movie is so good. It's so good. The movie is just, it's one of those movies where you're like, you forget how good it is, and you forget how groundbreaking it is, and why it's so good. Basically, well, let's compare it. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a compelling character. It has really cool set pieces. It has a deep lore. It's written really well. It's fun. I mean, like, also Blade is really cool. Wesley Snipes is a really cool guy. It's just a great movie. I mean, you can tell there's passion in it. With Morbius, it exists. It exists for no reason. It wasn't trying to tell a story. It wasn't trying to set up. I mean, sorry, it is trying to set up loads of things, but because there's no root, there's no anchor. What are you hanging on to? Like, what is the end goal here? Money. Great. Okay, cool. We all like money, but I mean, bro, you have to earn that. No one's going to show up and give you money because it has Spider-Man on it. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. It doesn't work anymore. We now know what this works, and for some reason, Sony are like, oh, the Spider-Man, the Spider-Man film, they'll buy that. It's like, no, we won't. We didn't. So I mean, like, that's basically the main reason. Like, Blade is like the obverse of doing a movie that is kind of darker, and also Blade's 18s. It's extremely violent.
Well, yes, that is kind of the main thing, because like, and it's violent, very much wears that on it, because like the first one opens with that big blood rave. The second one has like, Guillermo del Toro all over the place, and like, it's that. I think the second one starts in like a blood bank in Eastern Europe, and there's just awesome. Like, it's the Blade movies. They toe that line where they're very proud of the fact they're kind of gruesome, dark films, but they don't have that 2000s overly edginess to it, where it just feels like a 10-year-old trying to be cool wrote it. Do you know what I mean? It walks the line so clearly. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny because Goyer wrote both of them, 1 and 2. And Goyer,
he wrote 3 as well. He directed 3, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, you took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, Goyer has written some of my favorite movies and some of my most hated movies.
Ah, I see.
And I think as a writer, he's really good, obviously. But as a director, and if he's not filtered through something well.
Well, look, from what I've heard of the shooting of Blade Trinity, go listen to Patton Oswalt talking about it. It's a treat. I don't think Spielberg could have made Blade Trinity work under the conditions that they were working in.
I mean, I like Blade Trinity. I mean, it doesn't feel like a Blade movie. It feels like kind of an add-on. Like, Blade 2 is arguably better than Blade 1. I don't think it is, but I can. If you say
I'm in Blade 2's camp personally, but I can understand, but I like them both. Either way.
I was gonna say, like, if you do, I totally get why. I mean, like, it's visually a treat. It has some really cool stuff in it. The game is unreal too. So I mean, like, those two movies are so strong, and they're like the best way to. They're actually the only movies outside of Marvel that have done a Marvel movie as well as Spider-Man, right? So Spider-Man 1 and 2, obviously, landmarks, right? X-Men, X2, okay. But Blade 1 and 2, they were really trailblazing. They were like, we are just going to do this, and we're going to do a full tilt.
Well, what do you think about the vampire? Sorry to cut across you there, but why do you think? Because they definitely modernized the vampires, turning them into, like, because in Blade 1 you have you have the nightclub vampires, and then you have the old kind of Nosferatu-looking vampires. In Blade 2, you have the kind of the cool vampires, and they are at war with the sort of hybrid ones who look very, very gothic and classic. What do you think it is about Blade's vampires that work and still resonate? Do you know what I mean?
They're people.
Okay.
I mean, like at the end of the day, vampires are still people, right? And okay, Deacon Frost, he is a little so and so, right? A human turned into a vampire that is self-conscious that he's a he's not a pure blood vampire, right? It's brought up. It's a huge plot point in the movie where he wasn't born a vampire; he was made a vampire.
Yeah.
So you're either born a vampire or you're turned. It's called the embrace, and then you become a vampire, right? So that's his whole arc, and everything he does is in service of that. So
yeah, and there's a meta aspect to it as well, because the pure blood vampires are like those out of style vampires that we don't see anymore.
Yeah.
And the ones that were bitten are like the new hotness, wearing designer clothes. Like it's a statement of intent from the film about what they're making vampires into in cinema.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's actually a really good point, Kane.
Thank you.
One that I didn't actually think about, but I mean, like it is a true statement. I mean, like, you know, the old stuffy vampires, they're the ones that are like, oh, you know, you need to do this.
They all have like Eastern European accents, like
or English accents for some reason,
or super posh. But either way, they're touching the Dracula ends of the sphere, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a really cool dynamic that they had, and it's even the same in Vampire the Masquerade as well. Like, you can be a clubber vampire, or you can be an old school aristocrat, you know. And it is that kind of, but even still, they're even people. They're not cartoons. You know, I mean, you can't, like, it's like anything. I mean, a movie, a bit of text, a play, whatever, it has to have characters. If your characters are garbage, it doesn't matter what it is. And with Morbius, to take it back, no one is a character.
Okay.
No one's a character. Everyone is just there. I mean, dude, policemen literally say, we don't care that you killed these 6 people. That's not what police do.
Yeah.
That's not a thing.
Like at least I'm only going by the trailers now, and I don't want to be too harsh on a film that you have been very honest about, but I haven't seen. But it seems from the trailers like they are doing their best to make Morbius not into a vampire and instead into a superhero. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they do lean into that as well. I think that really hurts it. I mean, the movie would have been better as a hard or movie where, or is the rating in the US for people who are, and it's similar to our 18s rating. I mean, where he does brutally kill, and then it's him coming to terms with it, you know, going like, right, this is what I am, and then seeing what it can be like when Friend Orphan does that, and how he completely unhinged and unchained he is. I think that's a really cool dynamic, but because it has no teeth, excuse the pun, in this movie, it's like, this is stupid. I mean, you're not seeing the stakes, you know. Yeah, okay, right. Friend Orphan kills a nurse who apparently is a single mother and lovely. We see her die, but we don't really. We see her like running in heels down the hospital. It's like, awesome. Okay.
So if we aren't shocked, there's nothing to kind of cling on to, like, emotionally or stakes wise. Like,
look, the thing about visual storytelling is you show, you don't tell. That's the rule of filmmaking, right? It's like you show, you don't tell. And this, by writing that line of trying to get the safe rating, you remove your, like, if you're making Captain America, yeah, look, it doesn't, you don't need to have graphic violence, you know, even though ironically it's during World War II, one of the most violent times in human history.
Yeah, but there's a proud history of like PG World War II films. That's fine.
Like, no, but you know what I mean? Like, you can,
yeah.
There's certain Marvel properties where, yeah, you can absolutely do that. You know, Guardians of the Galaxy, even though it's not, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, blah, 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 right? With this, you really can't. He's a vampire that kills people and drinks blood. His nemesis are always going to be things that aren't great. You know, they're going to be.
They have to be worse than him.
Exactly,
you know?
Exactly. And that's what happens here. So by robbing it of its hard or rating, you remove reality. And I don't mean that in a, this movie needs to be real, because superhero vampires aren't real. But I mean, there still have to be real people. And it just doesn't make any sense. I think, again, the biggest jarring is where he's like, oh, I need to cure myself of this, and it's horrible. And then he's there like jumping around, doing his powers. Yeah, and you're like, all right, here, listen, which is it? Like, you know, it's
Funny
like
enough, didn't the Andrew Garfield films have that problem too, where he'd be swinging around the city being Spider-Man, shouting, taking pictures on his phone, and then there'd be like cut to scenes of Andrew Garfield crying. Like,
look, I mean, that's okay. You know, you can be upset as well, and they've kind of fixed that with the new Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh yeah, I'm looking more to like the sort of, I don't want to say schizophrenic because that's a medical condition, but like, the
bipolar,
sort of,
the bipolar.
That kind of nature of filmmaking, where it's just throw in stuff and trust the edit will fix it,
Yeah, and oh my god, like the editor in this movie, again, for all the reasons I outlined, is like it really is bad. I mean, like when you're doing this, I mean, I don't know what possessed them to do a vampire movie. I really don't. I'm like, they drink blood. There's violence, and then they just leave it out. It's such a weird
or at least
movie.
Put it out at Halloween,
Well, look, again, it probably was out. Again, look, a lot of this was probably the pandemic. It was pushback on it. But look, if this is what Sony's going to do, they should probably restock and go, look, maybe let's just sell to Marvel because we don't know what we're doing. And they don't. They genuinely don't. If I was in their shoes, what I would do is I would just scrap this here, go, look, Venom and Morbius, do a movie, Marvel, at some point. We'll take a cut. And then if they really wanted to hang on, they go, look, we'll just do alternative universe Spider-Man movies where, you can just do the one in the 20s. You can do, one where it's like the Amazing Spider-Man from the TV show. You can, there's different ones you can do. But doing this is a train wreck. And it's a train wreck for all the reasons. I mean, I love vampires, as I said. It wasn't good enough. This was like playing that weird neon vampire game, which I can't remember.
Yes, please comment if you can let us know what it is. I have a discreet Google now. Unfortunately, though, we are just at time. So, are there any plugs you want to give before we wrap? Or
my band is playing. Well, if you're listening to this, we're playing Fibbers tonight, which is Saturday. Drop in for free because it's a free show. It's Metal to the Masses, and if you want to buy a shirt, please do. Horrenda Bandcamp is where you can find us, and we would appreciate it. Also, the All Ireland Metal Project is wrapping up, so allirelandmetal.com. We're trying to raise as much money as we can for Women's Aid, so please do buy a shirt, t-shirt, whatever, CDs. And also if you're at Siege of Limerick, Aborted Earth and Horrenda are doing sets at that, so again, pop by and say hey.
Excellent. Well, on that note, we will wrap up our strange vampire journey in the middle of April. Thank you, Sony. So until next week, I have been Cian.
I've been Dara.
And we'll be back here next week. Bye-bye.
She says I'm not romantic. I say she's
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.